Hello and welcome to another edition of Business Africa. This week we're diving into topics that matter most to you: safer homes, greener energy solutions, and banking services tailored to your needs. But first, here's what's coming up. Expanding financial inclusion while keeping customers secure, African banks face a bold new challenge.
The biggest challenge we face is scammers. We are constantly looking for ways to avoid their traps. Banks often invite us to seminars to educate us on how scammers operate, such as sending fraudulent texts.
Unemployment and electricity shortages in Nigeria are being tackled head-on. Learn how the White Consult initiative is empowering communities through solar panel installation training.
The White Consult Training Institute is focused into training young technical hands in the renewable energy sector. We've been able to churn out 50 students in the last 3 years.
And in African cities, safe and sustainable housing is no longer just a priority, it's an urgent necessity. We'll explore solutions discussed at a major expert conference in Yaoundé, Cameroon.
I'm very pleased to receive this roadmap, which sets everyone in their place. First and foremost, city councillors and local elected representatives. The mayors of districts, towns and cities must take their role seriously.
Africa's fintech sector is booming despite global funding constraints. A new report from the European Investment Bank reveals how digital finance is outpacing traditional banking, with 1,263 African companies now reshaping financial services across the continent. A remarkable leap from just 454 years ago. Mobile networks now enable banking services such as opening bank accounts, deposits, withdrawals, and loans from a single handset, driving economic growth and enhancing access. But this progress also opens doors to scams, as seen in Tanzania, where technology has ensured a better financial inclusion. Let's dive into the story. For over 9 years, Ramdani Togolani has served as a bank agent, assisting more than 100 customers daily. He highlights how bank agencies have made it easier for people to access their money regardless of location.
The majority of our clients are government and private sector officials who receive their monthly payments between the 20th and 10th of each month. Business people, however, use our services daily. As a result, bank agency operations are especially busy during this period.
Togolani views financial inclusion as a gateway to employment opportunities, noting that many young people have found jobs in the financial sector. However, he acknowledges the persistent issue of fraud.
The biggest challenge we face is scammers. We are constantly looking for ways to avoid their traps. Banks often invite us to seminars to educate us on how scammers operate, such as sending fraudulent texts. Even the police send us alerts to keep us informed.
For customers like Tobias Masalu, bank agency services offer a sense of security. Before using these services, he stored his money at home in a small box where it was vulnerable.
I prefer using bank agents because my money always enters through banks. So if I have my bank account, it has been easy for withdraw my money anywhere. When I see the agencies, I use them to have my money in my hands mostly. That's why I prefer to use bank agents.
In contrast, Ms. Sekela Richard, a tailor for over 5 years, finds mobile money services more convenient because of their accessibility.
Since 5 years ago, when I started my business, I've been using mobile phone transaction services because it is efficient and convenient for me. It's easy because the services are near wherever I am. I can get the services, and when you're dealing with money, you really need to have a proper way of storing the money and the proper way to actually do transaction formally. for reference. So having my money stored within my home or my business place was risky because it's easy if anything happens like robbery or any other issue that may lead for me to lose my money. It's hard for me to track or to get a reference or to be able to get it back quickly.
Despite growing competition in the financial sector, Catherine Rutange, head of agency banking at CRDB Bank, sees demand continuing to rise. She believes the vision should extend beyond competition, ensuring all Tanzanians have access to affordable and reliable financial services. CRDB Bank is prioritizing rural areas where access to financial services is still limited.
When you are looking at rural areas, for us, we are following the cash corridors. So in rural area, there are certain economic activity that are happening on their day-to-day lives. So what we do, we are providing services that are going to allow us to engage and work with them and assist them to access those services that they do on a daily basis. Let's say most people from rural areas are agriculturists. So we went far ahead and create some accounts that will be catering for that particular segment of customers.
These free farms accounts have become increasingly popular in rural areas, reversing a long-standing lack of access to financial services. Enhancing financial inclusion in these regions could unlock significant opportunities. According to the 2022 Tanzania census, 40 million of the country's 61 million people live in rural areas. With mobile phone penetration at 83.66% in 2023, this well-connected rural population could be a key driver of Tanzania's economic development. Progress or just another talk show? Like every year, the annual Davos Forum brought together the international political and economic elite in Switzerland. 3,000 participants this year, including 60 heads of state and government leaders from 130 countries. Artificial intelligence took center stage with African representatives like South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa, DRC's Felix Tshisekedi and Somalia's Hassan Sheikh Mohammed calling for more equitable trade and investments that truly address Africa's needs. Solar energy continues to light the way for Africa's energy future. According to the Africa Solar Industry Association, the continent now adds over 2 gigawatt peak of solar capacity annually, reaching a total of 19.2 gigawatt peak, an estimate that excludes residential installations. South Africa and Egypt dominate installations, accounting for 80% of all new solar infrastructures. But interestingly, the Central African Republic leads in solar's contribution to its overall energy mix, an impressive 40% share for energy originating from solar. And more solar means more jobs. In Côte d'Ivoire, 5 vocational schools are training students in solar photovoltaics with the aim to bring a qualifying training geared towards the demand and needs of the labor market. Meanwhile, Nigeria tackles unemployment and power shortages by teaching youth how to install solar panels. Our journalist Hugo Ioana explores this promising initiative. He wants to see how a training program for young Nigerians in technical skills for installing solar panels is operating. Take a look.
Adebola Anofi, a young Nigerian entrepreneur in the renewable energy space, is empowering young unemployed Nigerians to alleviate the myriad of challenges the power sector faces in Nigeria through his organization, White Consult Training Institute.
I grew up in a neighborhood and estates. Once it's 7 p.m., there's hardly power supply from the main grid. Generators set blaring everywhere. The environment is polluted. You can hardly breathe in good air. And all this became a cause of concern for me. I sat down one day and I began to look at it. Are there no possible eco-friendly ways which you can generate power without having a polluted environment?
Adebola's quest to alleviating the power challenges by providing eco-friendly solutions for alternative power supply in Nigeria led him to setting up White Consult Training Institute for young Nigerians to be equipped with the skill to be solution providers in the renewable energy space and also gainfully employed as solar power inverter technicians.
The Practical Training Institute is focused into training young technical hands in the renewable energy sector. We've been able to churn out 50 students in the last 3 years. We've had 3 batches of training already, with already about 75 students passing through the Training Institute. And this last batch is the one that has really brought about what we call gender equality. Because in the past years, we've not had females keying into this training institute. But this last year, we've had about 3 females already. In the present batch of training we are undergoing, we have 1 female.
To everybody that is looking at me right now, even to the women out there and the ladies, I happen to be a married woman with 2 children, and I'm coming all the way from the comfort of my home to come and learn this. And I've come to realize that even me can do it better than these men out there. So that is the reason why I've come to acquire this basic knowledge to be a solution provider.
Ifeoluwa, the only female trainee technician in the current batch of training at White Consult Training Institute, is breaking barriers and stereotypes about women's involvement in getting the needed skills and expertise to make an impact in this sector.
So when we look at this power problem, we find out that most kids that are coming back from school, some of them happen to come back late at night. And at this time of the night, there is no power supply. They end up using local lights like lantern, candles, and which is not good enough for their study. They need a well-illuminated environment to be able to study and get a better result.
It is important to note that the components of these solar inverters are reusable and recyclable, making it safer and cleaner to be used in our homes, schools, hospitals, and offices.
Every product which the human consumes must complete a life cycle. If we keep manufacturing products and these products are not recyclable, we would end up creating another form of pollution while we are solving one. As such, if you look at the solar panels, if you look at the batteries, they are all recyclable products. Of recent, the Lagos State government has also partnered with us in ways whereby we can recycle this product. They have a dump site where we take these bad products, or these products when they have expired their shelf life, they have a way of extracting different components from this product.
Adebola's efforts in his community and Nigeria at large has not been unrecognized. He has partnered with both local and state governments and most recently banks to offer installment payment options to customers to procure solar inverters, and he has received awards for his contributions to the society. Adebola's contribution will not just create employment and alternative sources of power supply for Nigerians, but ensure our society is a safer place to live in with his environmental friendly solutions. This indeed is a call for action on more pragmatic solutions and training that could drastically alleviate the unemployment and power challenges prevalent in Nigeria.
Are you seeking to boost your business in Africa and Europe? Increase your visibility with Business Frequency thanks to our network of national television channels in more than 40 countries. Every week, more than 100 broadcasts across Africa, the Indian Ocean and Europe. Don't miss this unique opportunity. Contact us now and put your brand into the spotlight.
Welcome back to Business Africa. Africa's influence in the BRICS bloc continues to grow. According to Brazil, the group's chair, Nigeria has joined as a partner country following last year's addition of Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, while Turkey, Azerbaijan and Malaysia have applied to become members. With Nigeria's booming economy and the largest of Africa, the country became the 9th partner country alongside Uganda, and this move cements Africa's strategic role in the global south. Cybersecurity is another hot topic for African nations. The Global Cybersecurity Outlook report published by the World Economic Forum highlights concerns among African businesses, with 36% doubting the government's ability to handle cyber incidents, compared to just 15% in Europe and North America. Smaller companies feel particularly vulnerable, with 35% of them reporting insufficient cyber resilience, while a third of top CEOs reported that geopolitical tensions have escalated the risk of cyber espionage. Uganda's capital Kampala is grappling with a waste crisis. After a tragic 15-hectare landfill collapse last summer during rainfall killing 35 people, the city seeks waste-to-energy investors as well as producers of gas and fertilizers to transform garbage into renewable diesel. Infinitum Energy Group, a Cayman Islands-based waste-to-energy developer, is currently discussing with Kampala's city management to set up a project that could generate renewable diesel, and has proposed a $500 million project to help turn this vision into reality. This dilemma in Kampala is not unique. Many parts of Africa face similar challenges as the impacts of climate change intensify. Floods and landslides, which devastate homes and communities, are becoming increasingly frequent. Experts stress the critical need for safe and sustainable housing in urban areas across the continent. Over a year ago, this issue took center stage at an international conference in Cameroon, held shortly after a tragic incident in Yaoundé. Abubakar Munchali has the story.
Bodies of children, women and men that people are desperately seeking. These images of devastation following heavy rains in Yaoundé, Cameroon, have circulated worldwide, sparking outrage. Makeshift houses, most of them built on the side of the hill, Mount Mambakolo, have just collapsed under the pressure of the water and the landslide. The results are appalling.
All the pool of water descended and then ravaged everything here, carried houses with people who were already sleeping in their houses.
Nearly 30 deaths, according to official figures. Specialists are blaming climate change, but not solely. There's also the role of anarchic constructions not adapted to the requirements of the terrain, put in place not only by a precarious population, but also by a more privileged social stratum, all of them taking advantage of the lax property regulations governing space and building use, legal provisions that are not firmly being respected. Cameroon is not the only country in Africa or the world to experience this kind of disaster. Here, as elsewhere, demographic growth and the rapid development of cities have become real challenges.
Africa's urban population doubles every 20 years. It was only 27 million in 1950, and it has multiplied by 20 in 70 years. In some cities, the population has multiplied by 4 or 5 within a decade. So development is outpacing capabilities for planning and infrastructure investment.
And as a result, according to the experts, cities today are spreading out rather differently, horizontally, in what is called the informal city, being those areas apart.
These areas are at risk in terms of climate change because they are typically designed as non-edificandi, meaning they should not be occupied. However, when people migrate to the city and find no available space, they settle there. This is where the challenges of climate change, climate shocks, or climate risk intersect with sustainable housing, becoming challenges that need to be addressed simultaneously.
Challenges that must be overcome to ensure that such disasters never happen again on the continent. It was against this dramatic backdrop that an international conference on climate change and sustainable housing was held in Yaoundé. The conference is part of UN Habitat's World Urban Campaign, in particular the International Climate Agenda.
This is a very important meeting and the issues at stake are enormous. These days, it is not just a thought. It is not just something philosophical. The climate is changing, as we have seen. If we do nothing, we are going to create disasters.
It's an issue that's very close to our heart and what that generates a lot of questions and a lot of government action.
More than 600 high-ranking personalities, experts, players in the field, representatives of local government, business and civil society took part in the conference. It was a rich gathering with a range of discussions, formats for sharing content and debating, including roundtables, workshops and above all forums for highlighting best practices and presenting projects from civil society.
We have around 40 projects from civil society. There were those who presented the style of housing needed to bring about change. There were projects that also supported young people in their various initiatives so that they, especially the grandchildren and pupils, could grow up with the spirit of ecological transition.
For the Global Association Climate Chance, which organized the conference, it was a successful opportunity to sound the alarm once again, and above all, to involve the various players concerned in the important work of building African cities and the housing of the future in the face of climate challenges.
I think it was a conference that focused on informal settlement, which is often a taboo subject in Africa. Informal housing is often what we don't want to see, referring to develop new building programs with more Western standards, but which are very expensive. So they don't meet the needs in terms of quantity, because this informal housing is not going to disappear overnight. So we also need to integrate it into the strategy for sustainable housing in Africa.
The question of funding is obviously inevitable, but the participants also looked at other aspects. They discussed at length the issues of strengthening the capacity for action of local governments and local authorities, mastering urban planning, land governance, and above all the quality of construction and the integration of traditional materials.
It's a real challenge. There are skills that need to be preserved and passed on in Africa. We need new training courses, channels and certifications. We emphasized on this point.
A set of proposals to meet the climate challenges and promote sustainable housing in Africa has been set out in a document known as the Yaoundé Roadmap, an advocacy document aimed at the various governments on the continent.
I'm very pleased to receive this roadmap, which sets everyone in their place. First and foremost, city councillors and local elected representatives. The mayors of districts, towns and cities must take their role seriously. When it comes to taking into account the rural sector, precarious neighborhoods, urban planning and funding, we will be doing our utmost as the minister responsible for sustainable housing to support them in the non-governmental advocacy they will be doing.
But while a further step was taken in Yaoundé, we still have to wait for all the players involved to really get down to work. There's one hope: the gradual arrival on the continent of cities and habitats that are safer from climate change and are more sustainable. In other words, as the specialists explain, cities that are better organized, where adapted housing, mobility and green spaces have become a prerequisite for everyone's well-being.
And that wraps up this edition of Business Africa. Join us next week for Initiative Africa, where we'll be hosting Bola Bade, CEO of an insurance company addressing Africa's unique needs. Catch this episode and more on our website, africanair.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media and join the conversation with the hashtag Business Africa. Until then, stay safe, stay inspired, and see you next week. Goodbye.